Reading with your kids.
Hola, ni hao, konnichiwa, assalamu alaikum, shalom, mahaba, ciao, bonjour, namaste, jumbo, bienvenidos. Hey, my name is Jed Lee. Welcome to Reading with Your Kids. We are coming to you from the beautiful, wonderful, historical neighborhood of Reedville, located in the southwest corner of Boston, Massachusetts. We are so very honored and absolutely delighted that you're joining us in our mission to help all families grow closer through reading. We do that by sharing fun, thoughtful, and thought-provoking conversations with fascinating people who just happen to be writing books for kids of all ages. You can help in that mission by telling all of your family and friends about the show, letting them know that they can hear us on the WREB AM/FM 24/7 radio network, and they can find us on the iHeartRadio app, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, Good Pods, Podcasts, Addict, CastBox, Player FM, Boomplay, Ghana, and wherever you find your favorite shows. Today, Rob Renzetti returns to the show to celebrate the Twisted Tower of Endless Torment. And Sandy Whiting will be here to celebrate Meatball Man Head Detective Case of the Missing Pepper Shaker. Are you looking for a creative way to bond with your kids? Let me tell you all about Drawing with Your Kids, the ultimate destination for artistic adventures. Join us as we dive into the wonderful world of children's books with renowned illustrators guiding you step by step. From beloved characters to whimsical scenes, unleash your imagination and create cherished memories together. Whether you're a seasoned artist or just picking up a pencil, there's something for everyone at Drawing with Your Kids. Please visit our website, readingwithyourkids.com, and click on the Drawing with Your Kids link at the top of the page and let the creativity flow. Drawing with Your Kids, where every stroke brings stories to life. Hey there, families! Are you looking for an exciting way to bond and learn together? Look no further than our STEM is Family Fun video series. Join us as we explore the fascinating world of STEM through hands-on activities right in your own home. Our series features lessons from experts at renowned institutions like the San Diego Children's Discovery Museum, the National Children's Museum in Washington, D.C., and Children's Museum Houston. From making homemade rainbow bridges to creating an oboe out of a straw, there's something for everyone in the family to enjoy. So grab your lab coats and get ready for an adventure. Go to readingwithyourkids.com and click on the STEM is Family Fun link at the top of the page and let the learning and laughter begin. STEM is Family Fun, where learning and bonding go hand in hand. Join us right now from beautiful Southern California. Our guest is returning to Reading with Your Kids to celebrate his brand new middle grade novel. It's called The Twisted Tower of Endless Torment. Please welcome back to the show the award-winning Rob Renzetti. Hey, Rob, how are you?
I'm good, Jed. How are you? It's good to talk to you again.
I am so happy that you're back on the show. We had such a great time. Speaking about book number 1 in this trilogy. I can't wait to learn more about book number 2.
Well, thank you. Yeah, I'm excited to have written it and to be able to talk about it now. Yeah. What do you want to ask me? Ask me all your questions.
Let's start off easy. Just give me an overview of The Twisted Tower of Endless Torment.
All right. I'll try and talk about it in a spoiler-free way that doesn't blow anything about the first book in case listeners haven't had a chance to read The Horrible Bag of Terrible Things. But in The Twisted Hour of Endless Torment, Zenith and Apogee Maelstrom, brother and sister, they have survived their first journey to Grabog, the hideous world inside the Horrible Bag, and but they need to go back because things have changed. They've made changes in their own life. They've made changes in Grabog. They made changes in their life. And Apogee's not happy with those changes. And she feels things went wrong in the first trip, and she's desperate, want to go back. And Zenith reluctantly agrees. But then he is very reluctant to actually pick a date to get going. Eventually, Apogee gets sick of waiting for him and goes on her own, so he's forced to follow her back into the bag. They go back to Grabog, Zenith has to find his sister yet again, like he did in the first book, except now things have changed. He finds out that both him and his sister are notorious criminals as far as Grabog is concerned, because they did some what Grabogians consider bad things in the first book, and now they are wanted. Wanted, dead, alive, or eaten is how the wanted signs go. And so Zenith not only has to find his sister, but he has to avoid being seen, basically, by most of the populace who are turned against him. He has his allies. He has a few allies. Kreeble, the gargoyle that helped him in the first book, is back to help him again. She is his one true steady ally, besides actually Hugh, the Seeker of Grabog, the bird that he pressed into his service in the first book, also lends a hand. But otherwise, it's basically Zenith and his small crew and his sister up against the whole world of ghouls and monsters. So the task is great and the odds are long.
I love that expression, wanted, dead, alive, or eaten.
Thank you. That was my original title for book 2. But Penguin wanted book titles that followed the rhythm of the first one. So that's where we came up with the Twisted Tower of Endless Torment, which I love that. I love that title. So I'm not complaining. I'm happy to have that as the title. I get to use wanted, dead, alive, or eaten in the text. So I got to have both.
You know, as you're talking about the book, it's obvious you had a lot of fun writing this book because you're so animated and you look so happy as you're talking about it.
Well, thank you. Yeah, no, I mean, I didn't need to write these books in terms of like, I need to write them in that I love to tell stories and I need to tell stories. And I wanted to start telling stories in book form after a career of telling stories in cartoons. But I really kind of just went into the book writing part of my career to have fun, to tell stories I want to tell. I'm lucky that I don't need to tell them. I'm not going to get kicked out of my house if this book doesn't sell 1 million copies. But I just wanted to tell these stories. I hope lots of kids will pick them up and enjoy them. But I loved writing them. I was pleasing myself with every page. When I first came up with the Horrible Bag, the first book, I thought, well, this is a book. I didn't think about sequels, but when I got my literary agent based on the draft that I sent to him, when I signed with him, he said, do you see this as one book or as like a series? And I said, I think there could be 3 books here. And he said, well, okay, write up like a page of what you think the second book would be and a paragraph of what you think the third book would be. And we'll send those out with the manuscript for the first book. So that's what I did. And when Penguin Workshop picked it up, they picked it up as a trilogy. They wanted all 3 books, which I was over the moon thrilled with, that like they were committed. They committed to all 3 books. And so for me, that was just like, now I get to just sit back and enjoy myself and write these stories. And I had the first story not completely figured out, but I had a broad strokes of what I wanted it to be. I didn't have to. The third book was very sketchy in terms of the ideas I had for it. But the second book, I already had a lot of ideas. I knew what I wanted to do on a second journey for these characters to Grabog. So it was, and there were certain things I just was like chomping at the bit to get to. I had a lot of fun.
I've heard bands talking about, they work so hard and then work so long on that first album and it's a big hit and everybody loved it. And now it's like, okay, you have 6 months or a year to get the second one out and it's so challenging for them. Yeah. Was that something that you experienced with the series here?
Well, certainly challenging to meet the initial deadlines that Penguin put me on for the second book. They were a little bit strict. I did not make them. But, we made it out in time. They originally wanted to have the second book out like 6 months after the first book. So they wanted to have it out early in the year. But because I just couldn't get it done in time, not to my satisfaction. I could have turned in something, but I don't think anybody would have been happy with it. But also, I thought it made more sense to release them all in the summer and kind of like have a kind of the warm up of the summer and then leading into the Halloween season, because they are all, they're middle grade, spooky, scary books, and they're kind of designed to be read either on summer vacation or in the Halloween season or anywhere. And I think that's like the sweet spot of the year for kids to kind of dig into them, either on their summer vacation or when they're thinking about all things spooky. I love spooky things year round. I watch horror movies. I read scary stories whenever the mood strikes me, which is usually on a daily basis. But I know some people like really concentrate on the spooky when Halloween starts rolling along. So I want to kind of have them out there and have them fresh and have the people start talking about them around this time going into the fall. So we pushed the second book back to this summer release, and the third book will be released next summer, even though it'll be done ahead of time. I'm kind of working on book 3 now, and I'm already on the third draft of book 3. So I've got like one more set of big changes, and then that'll be pretty much locked down. So it'll be a while before it comes out, but I'm happy to wait because I think the summer is a good time for these books to appear.
Excellent. You know, you're talking about you love spooky things all year round. My daughter lives in the Halloween capital of the world, I think, Salem, Massachusetts.
Yeah.
Which is just, I mean, the mayor comes on and says, no, we don't have any more room. Don't come up here this weekend. All throughout October. So I see my daughter in September, and I'll see you in November. We're only 40 minutes away from each other, but
right.
It does seem like spooky is growing, and it's something that people just love to be scared and to kind of smile while they're hiding underneath the covers.
Yeah, I mean, well, we talked about this last time, but I was a scaredy cat when I was a kid, but at some point when I was in my preteens, I just switched 180 degrees and fell in love with everything horror and suspense and thriller. I was a big fan of Poe. That was kind of my gateway book, was the Edgar Allan Poe's short stories. I'm actually listening to an audio version of those stories as we speak. I found an audio version where Basil Rathbone, the guy that played Sherlock Holmes in the old Sherlock Holmes movies, the black and white movies that no kid will have any idea probably what those are. But anyways, these are old recordings he did for radio about the Poe stories, and he does a great job with them. I just finished listening to him read The Telltale Heart, which was fantastic. So yeah, Poe was a gateway drug for me in terms of getting into spooky stuff, but I've just loved spooky stuff since I was kind of a preteen my whole life. And it's funny you talk about Salem, Massachusetts, like them not wanting people to come in October. Halloween is actually quite a big deal out here in Los Angeles. You might not think it because of the warm weather, because it doesn't get that cold, but because of the entertainment industry, there's so many people, so many talented people that decide, like, I'm going to put on an elaborate haunted house in my house, or an elaborate yard display. And you can just spend the whole month of October driving around the greater LA area and going to little, non-professional haunted houses and yard displays and people put on shows in their front yard, or shows that involve their house. There's a very famous one, which, like, there's a story that takes place, and it's just different parts of the house facade light up and show you different scenes, and it's all animatronics and audio visual effects, and it's really quite amazing. So there's a lot of the Halloween. It's a great place to be for the Halloween season if you're a fan of that kind of thing, and I am.
Wow. Yeah. Well, that one up Salem. 'Cause it's just,
well, I'm sure Salem is probably trying to downplay stuff, right? They're like, we got too many people as it is.
Well, yeah, they do. It's a lovely community, a small downtown area, but literally 50,000 people on a weekend. It wasn't built for that.
No, I bet. I wish your daughter well, surviving the upcoming October.
Tell me, I think that families, the Twist Tower of Endless Torment and your trilogy is absolutely something that I'd want to read with my middle grade kids, if I still had middle grade kids, because I with my daughter, I've said here on the podcast, in the past that third grade, she discovered the ghost hunting shows, and she wanted so bad to watch them, and no one else would. So I said, okay, I will. And then
sure.
We went to that, and then it was, and so we spent years watching those together. They never found a ghost. It's unbelievable.
What?
Every week. This is the week. Oh, no, they didn't do it. And then
such a poor record.
I know. We went from that to Stranger Things, and now I have a niece who's in her late teens, and we're watching. There's another show on Netflix. I only enjoy watching them when I'm with them. I tried to do it on my own. It's like, it's just not the same without
Sure.
my
I hear you. Yeah, no, I mean, I don't have any kids, as I think we talked about. So if I did, I would definitely be shoving this stuff probably in their face more than they'd want. But luckily, my wife is also a huge horror fan. It's probably one of the reasons we ended up together. All our tastes are the same. But so her favorite movie is Jaws. Just not which is more than a horror movie, but it's one of my favorites as well. But yeah, we watch horror movies on a regular basis. Anything from very, very sophisticated highbrow stuff to the cheapest slasher you can imagine. We are very indiscriminate in our taste for horror movies. So in fact, our challenge, I think, one Halloween, we a couple of years we've set challenges of ourselves. One Halloween, one October, we decided we're going to watch a horror movie every night, but it's going to be one that we've never seen before. And it was a bit of a challenge to find 30 horror movies that were available, that on streaming that we didn't know about or hadn't seen. But we managed it.
Yeah. Hey, I mentioned that you're an award-winning and you've won awards for your animation. I wish I could speak English better.
You're doing great.
You went to cartoon college. I had no idea that there was. I know that there's a clown college. I applied for that, but I had no idea there was a cartoon college. Yeah,
it's called California Institute of the Arts, or CalArts for short. It used to be called the Chenard Institute of Art, or I don't remember Chenard's official name, but it was Chenard. And a lot of Disney animators in the 30s and 40s went there. In fact, Disney sent a lot of his animators there to get more proficient at drawing. Like they had a lot of life drawing classes and stuff there. And he became so involved that at one point he invested a ton of money, and they basically he wanted to get an animation program started there to train future animators. And so they moved the campus from downtown LA up to Valencia, California. And he sunk a ton of money into the building of that campus and to starting up an animation program. And there's actually two animation programs there: character animation and experimental animation. And I was lucky enough to go to the character animation program for just a couple of years. And then at the time I went, a lot of people didn't go for 4 years because there was so much work to be done. The first chance they got to get out in the industry, they went. I mean, some of my classmates left after a semester. They didn't even stay a full year of school. But I went for 2 years. And this was after I'd gone to a normal university in Illinois called the University of Illinois down in Champaign-Urbana, and graduated an art history degree, and told my father I didn't want to do anything with art history. I wanted to go to the cartoon college, which I just found out about. I knew vaguely that there was there's supposed to be a school in California that Disney started, and that wasn't quite accurate. Like I said, it was a school that existed that he kind of transformed or helped to transform. But just coincidentally, fate smiled on me. The Chicago Tribune had an article about CalArts, while I was still going to University of Illinois, and I found a catalog from CalArts at U of I's library. So I learned how to apply and do all that, and I applied and eventually got enrolled in the program. So even though I graduated, I kept going to college, which my father was not too happy about at the time. But since it all worked out, I think he ended up pleased in the end.
Well, that's great. There are so many colleges that I think surprise people that they specialize in cartooning or clowning or music, and and what you said about so many of your classmates didn't graduate; they got out and they got work. Reminds me a lot of my daughter, who went to Berklee College of Music, and so many of the students, they get gigs and they start touring, start recording after their sophomore or junior year.
Yeah, I mean, and I already had an undergraduate degree. So for me, the point was to get connected to the industry and to learn how to be an animator to learn my craft, but also ultimately get hired in the industry. And some opportunities came along that the plan for me had always been to just go 2 years, because at that point that was the standard for people. Almost nobody stayed around for 4 years to get a degree, because the degree didn't really matter as far as getting employed in the industry. It was all about your talents and your ability. And the studios would come. They had what they called portfolio day. You did a student film every year, And those films were all shown. And also there was a portfolio day where so the studios would come and look at those films, but they'd also come look at your drawings and your portfolio. And a lot of people just got hired out of that. And eventually after my second year, I got hired after a rather circuitous route. The fall after my second year, I got hired at Hanna-Barbera, and I was working in the industry ever since. So.
Wow, that studio put out so many of my favorite cartoons.
Yeah, well, mine too. I used to watch Hanna-Barbera. I used to watch the Banana Split show as a kid, and they had in the original Banana Split shows they had like a certain number of the cartoons that were designed for the original thing. But when I was seeing it in Chicago, it was just in reruns, and they just threw whatever Hanna-Barbera cartoons they wanted into the middle of it. So I saw almost all the short Hanna-Barbera cartoons almost all of them were included in that Banana Splits format. So I saw Adamant and Yippee and Yahooey and Quick Draw McGraw and Secret Squirrel. And we ended up actually my group ended up working on a reboot of Secret Squirrel as part of Two Stupid Dogs, which was the show I got hired to work on at Hanna-Barbera. So. Very
cool. Very cool. I saw on your website that your first animation job was over in Spain.
Yes.
And I was wondering, are cartoons that are created for a Spanish or a European audience, do they differ at all than cartoons created for North American audience?
I'm sure they do, but the show I was working on over there was actually for an American audience. It was the original Batman the Animated Series. It's just that show was animated all over the world. They had so many episodes ordered, and they had to get it on the air so quickly that they sent random episodes to studios all over the world, to Asia, to Europe, whatever. The studio I was working for had been contracted, I think, to either do 3 or 4 half-hour episodes, and I ended up working on a couple of those. So I was working on Batman over there. Is what I was working. So it was it was helpful because we were American. We helped translate some of the stuff maybe the Spanish animators didn't understand, and also and we got to learn from the more senior animators and do our animation there. But I only worked on that. I only worked at it for a few months before I came back home. That's where I went directly after my second year at CalArts, and then I came back home and got hired at Hanna-Barbera with some nail biting months where I had no job whatsoever.
Well, that's what makes us strong and resilient.
Yes, that's right.
If there are folks out there listening that are aspiring authors, maybe aspiring illustrators, but they're looking to create content for kids, what advice would you give for those folks?
Make content for yourself first. Like in other words, work on stuff that you enjoy, create things that make you happy. I think if you make something that you love and that you sincerely like and that you sincerely think is either funny or scary or dramatic or whatever you're going for, and I would suggest you put all those things together in whatever you're creating, because that's what I like to do. I would just say, do something that pleases yourself. Look at plenty of other stuff that's either successful or not successful. Watch a lot of shows, read a lot of books. Not so that you're copying them, but just so you kind of absorb what's out there, and kind of get inspired either positively or negatively, I could do better than that, or that really stunk, and think about why it stunk, or that's fantastic. If I could even come close to doing something like that, I'd be thrilled. For me, right before I started working on Horrible Bag, I listened to the audiobook version of the entire series of Unfortunate Events by Lemony Snicket. Because I'd heard about it and I thought it sounded like it was kind of in the area I wanted to be. And so, and Tim Curry did the narration on most of those audiobooks. So it was a win-win. And I actually, while I was on my short drive to work every morning, I listened to book 1 and didn't stop until I got all the way through. Was it book 13? I can't remember how many Unfortunate Events there were now. I think it might have been 13. That seems like the right number. And I loved the whole series. And so as I was kind of thinking about what I was going to do, that was kind of the touchstone that I went with. But, the Horrible Bag kind of is in the same kind of black humorish vein, but isn't quite like Lemony Snicket. At first I started even with like kind of a self-aware narrator who was kind of aware of the audience more so. But that didn't last. I think I maybe wrote a chapter like that, and then I decided, no, that doesn't feel right, and I changed it. Yeah, I guess that's my advice. I kind of rambled there, but yeah, just start creating, read and write, watch and write, just kind of work on stuff until you get something that you're pleased with and you like. I wrote like 5 drafts of The Horrible Bag before I ever showed it to anybody. I wanted to make sure I was happy with it before it went out into the world, because I didn't want to present something that I wasn't pleased with myself.
Right. Yeah. I love that. I think that's great advice. Where can we go to find out more about the Twisted Tower of Endless Torment and find out more about you?
Well, I have a website. It's robrenzetti.com. It talks about both my cartoons and my books. You'll see Twisted Tower of Endless Torment along with its older sister, Horrible Bag of Terrible Things, right there on the front page, and you can click through to pre-order Twisted Tower if you're interested, or the Horrible Bag. I think the Horrible Bag paperback is going to be coming out the same day as the Twisted Tower hardcover, and that's July 23rd. So it's coming up. You won't have to wait long if you're interested in possibly reading the books. But you can also find out more about my career in animation there and other things and influences things that influenced me when I was writing these books. I also have a couple of like art galleries of artwork from my life as a teenage robot and Mina and the Count, which is a series of shorts I also created. And I'm, if you are a fan of Teenage Robot, I'm writing a new Teenage Robot story, serialized story, chapter by chapter, for subscribers to my newsletter. So if you sign up for my newsletter, you will get to read a new story of my life as a teenage robot. The first thing I've written in 20 years since the show ended. That's happening right now. So a little bonus content for subscribers that sign up for my newsletter.
Awesome. What a treat. And what a treat it's been speaking to you again. Have we come up with a title for the third book? Are we able
We have. It's tentative. I've mentioned it in a couple other interviews, so I think I can mention it here. It's called The Cursed Cloak of the Wretched Wraith.
Cloak of the Wretched Wraith.
Yes. A little spoiler alert. There's a new character called the Wraith. It appears in this. It's new and old, and I won't explain what that means. But the Wraith appears in book 2, early in book 2, and that character continues to bedevil Zenith and Apogee in book 3. So the third book I think it's going to be taught. Its final approvals, Penguin, are happening as we speak. So if I'm wrong, don't blame me. But I want to call it, and I think they want to call it, The Cursed Cloak of the Wretched Wraith. And that'll be out next July, most likely.
Well, we want you back here again so we can celebrate that book on Reading with Your Kids.
I would love to come back once again. It would be my pleasure.
We've had a great time speaking to the author of The Twisted Tower of Endless Torment. Our guest has been Rob Renzetti. Rob, thanks so much for being with us.
Thank you, Jed. Thanks for having me here.
Before we invite Sandy Green into the studio to celebrate her new middle grade novel, The Haunting of Lake Lucy, I want to tell you all about a project that we're real excited about here at Reading with Your Kids. If you've listened to the podcast, you know that I spent over 35 years doing educational magic shows at schools and libraries and churches and special events all across the country and in many other countries. So many amazing magical things happened to me in my career, and we've decided to turn those magical events into a podcast for kids. We're calling it Real Magic, and joining us right now to give us a little musical preview of that project is my friend Chris Hardy. Chris.
Kindness is quite magical, and respect is magical too. When you travel as much as Jet does, the magic comes right through. But he's not alone in his quest, he's got some helpers in his crew. 3 dogs that help him stage his show and bring it right to you. Real Magic Podcast, it's so much fun. charge as a magician and a bit of a clown. Calvin is a goofy pit bull who never seems to be down. Augie is a grumpy old beagle, or is he really a basset hound? And Daisy is a border collie wiener dog that knows her way around. Real Magic Podcast, it's so much fun in many ways. Real Magic Podcast, tune in and you'll be amazed. Real Magic Podcast, it's so much fun in many ways. Real Magic Podcast, tune in and you'll be amazed.
Before we invite our guest into the studio, I would love to invite you to visit a very special website. It's clownswithoutborders.org. Clownswithoutborders.org. This is a group that I absolutely adore. I am part of Clowns Without Borders, and I had the honor of being part of the 2023 tour of El Salvador. I had so much fun joining with artists from all over the world to bring a smile to people who really needed it and really appreciated it too. And we would love for you to join us as a monthly Joy Maker. The Joy Makers, they're a family of people just like you who love to laugh and make other people feel good. So please take a moment and visit clownswithoutborders.org and consider joining me as a Joy Maker. Join us right now from the western part of the great state of New York. Our guest is here today to celebrate her brand new book. It is called Meatball Man, Head Detective, Case of the Missing Pepper Shaker. Please welcome to the show, Sandy Whiting. Hey, Sandy, how are you?
Hi, good. Thank you so much for having me on.
If I were more clever, I would have said, hey, Sandy, what's shaking? But I wasn't, so we lost it. So tell us about Meatball Man. I mean, there was a time in my life where I was Meatball Man, so I'd be real interested to find out about this.
So Meatball Man is the head detective in Town City, and he works with his fellow detectives and best friends, Cheese Stick and Breadstick, and they live in Town City. They, keep the streets safe. Kind of used to doing the same old until Sally the salt shaker comes barging in one day, shedding tears of salt all over the place, trying to find her husband missing Petey the pepper shaker.
Fascinating.
Yeah. So
this is really, really cool. I love the idea. It sounds like a lot of fun. I'm imagining that if I was still reading to my kids, they're 30 and 27 right now. I can't get them to sit down on my lap anymore. But I'm imagining we'd have a lot of fun grabbing the pepper shaker and maybe grabbing one of my meatballs after it cooled off a little bit and kind of acting out the story.
Yeah. So what's funny about that is, that's actually how Meatball Man came to be. I have two kids, 5 and 7. And one night at dinner, we were eating spaghetti and meatballs. And we were kind of talking about the day and some of the things they had read in school and just some books at the library. And we decided to come up with our own story. And I said, oh, what about a meatball that was a detective? And my son had a breadstick and garlic bread next to him. And we're like, oh, yeah, how about this? And we're acting it out. And that's where the idea of Meatball Man came from.
Pretty cool. I love that. I think that's such a great activity to do with your kids. Even if you don't have any aspirations to be a published author yourself, it's just the act of sitting down with your kids and thinking, what if this meatball came to life and it was a detective? And it's so much fun. And, it's something, I think one of the things, it's something that you can do with your kids where you're on kind of like the same level. You know, you're both just using those imaginations.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And it's so, like you said, it's just so fun too. It's so fun. It's creative. You know, right before I logged on to this, actually, my son came over with one of his toys and he's like, I think I'm going to make a story about a friend who moves away and comes back and is a transformer. But how would I know? How would they know it's the friend if he has a mask? And then that opens up all of that dialogue too of just problem solving, and you get to get the kids involved, and kids are just so creative. Their imaginations are incredible. And so it's a really, really fun way to do that. It's just taking an object that you have at home, whether it be a toy or a meatball at dinner time and coming up with a story. It's tons of fun.
You know, that's one of the things, I've told this story before. One of the, I worked in human services for a long time before I started performing, and I worked at a school for kids with severe developmental disabilities. And I had a background in social work, but I'd never worked with kids that had these type of disabilities. And I was really successful in my position there. It certainly wasn't because I had any kind of expertise. I think it was the opposite. It's because I didn't go to school and sit for 4 years with professors telling me, oh, these kids can't do X, Y, and Z. I just went in there and I saw a bunch of kids and they did things differently. But it's like, well, you're a kid, so you're going to like to swim. You're going to like to do this and that, and we'll figure out a way to make it happen. And it was an approach that none of the therapists and whatnot had taken before. And I think that can apply to a lot of different things in life, a lot of different jobs. And I think it's a great kind of skill, or it's a great thing to help our kids be aware of, because they might be able to solve problems that the experts can't.
Yep, for sure. And I see, you know, with my kids or at work or, you know, just out in the community too, I think at least what I've seen is a lot of that confidence level in kids too sometimes. You know, oh, I don't know if I can write a story, or I don't know if I could solve this problem, or I'm not sure. But by opening up and tapping into that imagination and creative, you know, part, and showing them and encouraging them that, oh yeah, we can do this, and through a story. Kids love writing stories and doing that. And then I get to see the pride in the kids' faces too when they do that. I think, like you said, just meeting kids at the level that they're at and encouraging them is just so huge. Not talking down at them, but to them and with them. It's very, very powerful.
It certainly is powerful. Some of the, being 100, almost everybody in my life is a lot younger than me, and a lot of those great relationships I have, I think, were formed because I don't tend not to talk down to people. It's like, hey, let's figure this out. Let's figure out a way to have fun together.
Yeah, for sure.
Now, we were talking beforehand, in addition to being a kidlit author, you are also a speech and language pathologist.
I am, yes.
You were sharing with me that you've had a really fascinating career. You started working with infants at home, then you worked with elderly folks and stroke victims and rehab situations. Now you're working in school districts with kids in school. I get with the newborns, you're trying to help them form words and learn how to speak. With the elderly and the stroke victims, you're helping them, again, relearn how to speak. What are we doing with the high school and middle school kids?
So high school and middle school. So I work in primarily the high school and middle school. And so speech is a really interesting field because people say speech, and a lot of times people think of articulation. So getting your R's produced right.
Wait a minute. Wait. I'm sorry. I have to stop you here.
Okay.
Was that like a Freudian slip? You're talking to somebody from Boston, and then you have to go with, we got to teach them how to say R.
The Boston R, right? Yes, the Boston R. That's what I say to my kids sometimes. besides the Boston R. No, we do. Speech is so interesting because, yes, there's the disfluencies and stuttering, but a large part of speech that I work with in the middle and high school is social skills back and forth. So turn taking, conversational skills, language. So figurative language, making predictions in text, memory. You know, if somebody reads you a paragraph, can you remember the details and organize them? So I do a lot of work with that, actually.
That is really fascinating. I have, and it was much worse at one time in my life, a speech impediment. I have a difficult time with certain letters, and it really rears its ugly head when I get very tired, or as we say here in Boston, and when I get wicked tired. And thankfully, a speech therapist, Mr. Wallenus, back when I was in kindergarten and first grade, helped me a great deal. And ironically, he had a terrible stutter, and it's very difficult for him to form words and to get sentences out. But he helped me figure out how to speak. And I wonder if he's still around and could hear that I'm a podcaster now. But anyways, it's fascinating that I don't think that, and certainly I didn't think that, the interacting and knowing when to talk and how to share and memorizing what we're hearing, that's all part of that same speech thingy that goes on in our brains.
Yeah, it's all under the umbrella of what speech therapy can work on and target. And I think it's definitely something that I'm always kind of explaining what falls under the realm, because there's so many things that do, which is part of what makes my job so awesome, and I love it that I get to do all those different things too.
Yeah. I remember very vividly when my son was in middle school, and I'm one of those sneaky parents. I would always volunteer to drive the kids around because I knew sitting up front in the minivan, I would just hear everything that was going on at school. Stuff my kids would never tell me. It would just come out. But I noticed with the guys, they were talking, the conversation the talking never stopped. They weren't really having a conversation. They were just waiting for each other to stop talking and take a breath. Tommy's talking about raspberries, and then Joe talks about nuclear physics, and then Chris talks about something completely, there was no give and take back and forth. It was just, we're taking turns speaking. Is that just a middle school thing, or is?
I don't know. I think I see it everywhere. We would be working on remaining on topic, I suppose, if we were in a session. But I think that, I don't know, I see it kind of everywhere. But I'm from that Italian family, too, where someone talks loud, and then the next person talks louder, and the next person talks louder, and we might be changing topics all the time. So I don't know if I'm the best one to really say.
Now, before we started recording, Sandy and I am very familiar with the area of New York that she lives in and works in. And Kodak, the old Kodak company, for young people, we used to have to take pictures with the camera, and there would be film in it. It would have to get developed. And we're talking about how Kodak has kind of, it's still there, but they kind of been taking, made obsolete by digital cameras and whatnot. And there was a question I was going to ask you, and I wanted to hold it for the podcast here. I hear Elon Musk talking about one day that everybody's going to be fitted with this Neuralink, and that we're not going to have to speak. We'll be able to read each other's minds.
Oh.
And as Sandy looks terrified.
Oh.
it is kind of. I'm wondering if we ever get to that kind of point. And I think I know the answer from what we've been talking about. Will there still be a need for speech pathologists? Someone to help people organize their thoughts. I would be terrified for somebody who was able to read my mind.
Me too. Yes. So that's kind of scary. I think definitely, first off, not being able to talk. I don't know. There's a lot that goes there as a speech therapist, just learning. That's how we learn. That's how we get information. We intake things by listening to people around us too. That's how we learn and how we develop. So, yeah, that's kind of a scary thought there, but also, like you said, the organization of the brain, that's absolutely something that speech therapy also looks at too. So,
so, that's really fascinating. Hey, again, we're going to get back to talking about Mr. Meatball or Meatball Man. I'm sorry.
Oh, you're good.
But I'm just curious. One of the things I notice, I'm not fluent in Spanish, but I've spent a lot of time by myself in Spanish-speaking countries, performing, needing to get around. When I'm in those situations, I try to think in Spanish, think in the language. And I find myself, when I'm in that mode, looking at the world in a slightly different way. And I've always encouraged people to try that just because I think it's fascinating. Is that just my imagination, or do you think there's something to that the language and the words that we're using help shape our perspective?
Oh, I think that they definitely do. And I think just even thinking about words like purposefully and then like all about the word, right? Like, so like, what is its function? What does it do? What does it look like? Your senses heightened, all of those things about it just helps us learn the word, the language better and learn more around it. If we can immerse ourselves in language, the more that we learn and the more that we know. So yeah, I think there's definitely a link there too.
Yeah. Now back to Meatball Man and our delicious mystery here.
Yes.
Do you plan on making this a series?
I do. So this is the first. I already have a couple chapters of the second one in the works. My kids are part of the brainstorming process, so they help with that. We sat down one day, took notes, and kind of jotted out some drawings of the characters. So yeah, we're working on it, and my son really wants me to make a zombie Halloween Meatball Man, so we'll see how that works out.
That could be pretty cool.
Yeah.
That could be pretty cool. Any danger of Meatball Man being eaten at some point in the series?
I still have not figured out the whole food thing yet. I'm still working on that, of what they eat. They don't eat anything in the first one right now, so we're still working on that.
Well, I just returned from visiting the International Children's Book Festival in Bologna, Italy. And
Awesome.
Try as I might, I did not find a meatball on any menu in all of Bologna.
Oh, what? That's surprising.
Every region I've been told has their own kind of dishes. In Bologna, it's bolognese sauce and lasagna, and so I had delicious bolognese and every night I was over there.
That's interesting, though.
Yeah.
I would have thought they'd have meatballs.
I would have too, because I was going to, because I've been a connoisseur, and not those little Swedish kind of meatball size things. When I make them, I make these giant meatballs, and they're just delicious. It's what a gift to the world.
Yes.
So how have you changed now that you are an author? The book will be officially published in a few weeks from the night that we're recording this. But has it kind of changed the way you think of yourself?
No, I don't think so. I mean, I think there's so much for me to learn and grow, and I just feel really honored and really blessed that I'm able to have my words out into the world soon. So, I feel very, very lucky, and very honored. So that's great. But I just, keep reading, keep writing, keep using my imagination too. You never know what kind of stories will pop in there too. So
there you go.
Yep.
There you go. And keep collaborating with your kids.
Absolutely. And I teach I had a creative writing club at the library where I work too. And I'll tell you, that is one of the coolest things that I do, is just to see a bunch of middle schoolers in a room get really excited about different topics, and they're all helping each other, trying to come up, oh, you could have the character do this, and oh yeah, their name could be this, and brainstorming together. It's just, there's a lot that can be learned from children too.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, we should learn where we can go to find out more about Meatball Man, Head Detective, Case of the Missing Pepper Shaker, and find out more about you.
All right, great. Well, Meatball Man is available for pre-order, but it might be out when this airs. But you could go to Amazon, or Barnes & Noble or Walmart, any of those websites. And then I can be found on Twitter and Instagram. And I do have a Linktree site. So yeah, it'd be great to connect with more readers and writers too.
That will be fantastic. We've had a fantastic, delicious time speaking to the author of Meatball Man, Head Detective, Case of the Missing Pepper Shaker. It is the brand new book from our guest, Sandy Whiting. Sandy, thanks so much for being with us.
Thank you so much. Have a great day.
We hope you've enjoyed this episode of Reading with Your Kids and will join us for the next exciting episode of the show. And in fact, we hope that you don't miss a moment of all the great content that we are going to be presenting to you, bringing to you over the next few months. So a great way to stay in touch is to follow us on social media, facebook.com/readingwithyourkids, at Reading With Your Kids on Instagram, and at Jedly Magic on X. As you heard earlier in the show, Real Magic Podcast will be coming to you and your kids sometime this fall. We're also going to be presenting Guardians of the Game, a Dungeons & Dragons inspired collaborative adventure that's coming your way. We're really excited about that. Of course, we have 4 episodes of Reading with Your Kids coming your way every single month with some really fantastic guests and some great listen backs to past episodes of the show. We'd also love it if you could visit our YouTube channel, youtube.com/readingwithyourkids. You can find all of our Drawing With Your Kids videos and all of our STEM is Family Fun videos on our YouTube channel. And of course, readingwithyourkids.com is the place that you can go to find our Reading With Your Kids Certified Great Read Wall of Fame. You can find our blog. You can use the contact button at the top of the page to let us know what you love about the show. Let us know what we could be doing better, and let us know who you would like to hear on a future episode of Reading With Your Kids. Hey, speaking of letting us know what you love about the show, we'd really appreciate it if you could let other folks know about the show and what you love about the show. Of course, you can do that by just telling your family and friends. It also is a huge help if you could leave us a review on whatever podcasting app you're listening to the show from, especially if you're listening over on Spotify. If you're an author, you don't want to miss readingwithyourkids.com. You can go there to find out how you can be a guest here on Reading With Your Kids. It's fun, it's easy, and it gives you the chance to tell thousands of people about your fantastic children's book. Want to thank the folks who made today's show so wonderful. Of course, we'll start by thanking our guest, Rob Renzetti. Be sure to check out the Twisted Tower of Endless Torment. And also Sandy Whiting. Be sure to check out Meatball Man, Head Detective, Case of the Missing Pepper Shaker. I want to thank my buddy Chris Hardy by giving us that musical preview of Real Magic. Also want to thank my team, Fatima Khan, Chris Doherty, Judy Hu, Stella Cheray, Hannah Bosange, Alyssa Montiero, Julia Lippman, Devin Hill, Riley Oluwu. I want to thank my beautiful wife for all the support she gives me. Most of all, we all want to thank you. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us today, and as always, thank you so very much for taking the time to make the world a better place, and you do that every time you read with your kids. I'll be looking for you in the next episode of Reading with Your Kids.